Welcome to the Good Growing Podcast. I am Chris Enroth, horticulture educator with University of Illinois Extension, coming at you from Macomb, Illinois, and we have got a great show for you today, the Perennial Plant of the Year. It's going to be an interesting, I think, Perennial Plant of the Year selection. We're going to talk about this one for this year, and you know I'm not doing this by myself. I am joined, as always, every single week by horticulture educator Ken Johnson in Jacksonville. Hey, Ken.
Hello, Chris. You have any experience with this Perennial Plant of the Year?
Of course not. So let's talk for an entire hour about this plant. Yes. Have you grown this particular Perennial Plant of the Year?
I have not.
Good.
So blind leading the blind.
We are obviously the authority on this. No, I would say as you're listening, watching the show, if you've had experience with this plant or you have more to add to the conversation, please feel free, throw that comment below in the chat. You know, we'd love to learn more about it because, I mean, I am anticipating buying it for myself and giving it a try this year. How about you, Ken?
Yeah, it may make the list for this year.
Mm-hmm. We'll see. We got to carve out quite the space for it, though. But we'll talk about that. And so, but yeah, I guess before we get to that, Ken, everything else going okay? I know you're at home right now because it's so cold outside. No one's allowed to leave the house. Schools are closed. And so my kids are off school. So I'm guessing yours are too.
They are. Yeah, I think wind chills this morning when I looked, it was 23, 24 below. And that was after the sun came up. So I don't know what it was before that. So bit nippy down here.
It was a cold drive into the office. The air temperature, at least in Macomb, was -7 on the drive in. So it was chilly. And then the stop signs, you can see them shimmying in the wind. You know it's windy and cold when you see that happening. I got to the office, all of our water pipes are frozen. So if you see me run outside real quick, you'll know why.
See, it's 2:00 right now on the 21st, and it is 1 degree in Jacksonville.
Yes.
So it feels like 15 below.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Well, yes, it is mighty cold out there. The furnace here at the office is kind of running nonstop, barely able to keep up. So it would be a good day to kind of hole up at home. I wish I was back home right now.
Soon enough.
Yeah. So I guess maybe one question that I actually already got one today. Someone did ask, we don't have any snow cover on the ground. What does a deep freeze like this mean for something like our soil dwelling insects, things like Japanese beetle, grubs, and things like that? Does that mean, are we going to be seeing potentially fewer of them next year because of the frost depth?
Probably not. It's not getting really cold real long. I think tomorrow it's supposed to warm back up into the 20s and stuff. So say probably not. Here in Jacksonville, we still have, depending on the sun exposure, still have a decent amount of snow.
Okay.
In a lot of ways, like our front yard is north facing, so it's all covered in snow. Backyard, we've got patches of bare grass, but there's still a decent amount of snow cover, which is going to just help insulate. But even then, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, Japanese beetles, I mean, they get out into the 20s, and I'm not sure how cold soil temperatures have gotten, but it's not going to be this, bitter cold for terribly long. Like it was that last year around Christmas, and then
we had a cold snap in February, and then Christmas was real cold.
What was it? Polar vortex was at 2014.
2014.
Came through. We had those really cold temperatures for multiple days.
Mm-hmm.
But we had snow then, so
yeah. Well,
wait and see.
We will wait and see. Again, Japanese beetles, things like they have not been a big issue in my neck of the woods for a couple of years now. So we're not. I think population levels hopefully have leveled out a little bit. They're going to go up and down, but leveled out for the most part.
Yeah, it's been several years since I've gotten a Japanese beetle question here. Mm-hmm. So yeah, Jacksonville. Well, we don't grow a lot that they're attracted to, but other than like sweet corn, and only see a few here and there.
Yeah. Well, so folks, bundle up. It's we're just getting started with winter. I feel like I'm so excited. This is so much fun. Yeah, like wearing sweaters and stuff. So this is my time of year until I'm sick of it, which will be about mid-February. Well, I can probably no reason to put this off any longer. The 2025 Perennial Plant of the Year. Again, it's one that we're not quite familiar with, but I am familiar with this group of plants. And the one that the Perennial Plant Association has selected this year is the clustered mountain mint. Now, the scientific name for that is Pycnanthemum muticum. Hopefully that's all being pronounced correctly. Again, we read these a lot, but we say them out loud not as frequently. So I think we're saying it correctly. Pycnanthemum. Yeah.
So yeah, if not, people let us know. And then, so Pycnanthemum, looking that up, so comes from Greek. So pycnos, meaning dense or tight or close packed. And then anthos is flower. So it's got this really tight cluster of flowers for that genus. That's how they get their name. Mm-hmm. And was muticum, was that blunt?
Yes. Blunt, or because another name for it is short-toothed. It kind of has these, like, I describe them as stubby leaves. I don't know how else to describe them. But yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think they're more ovate than the other species of Pycnanthemum. So
yeah. So in particular, the clustered mountain mint, it's one that I have not grown as much. When I look at the map distributions, kind of that native habitat range for this plant, there are no recorded observations in my part of Illinois, like McDonough County, but a lot of the texts say that it is native to Illinois. So why is it not listed in maybe my particular county? Probably because no one's looking for it. That's a very good reason. We know that with a lot of invasive species, as an example, are here. Some I've found in my own backyard, but when I go online to look at the invasive species maps, McDonough County is not listed on there. So, I could probably be a good reporting the citizen scientist and say, hey, actually, bush honeysuckle is definitely in McDonough County. But I think it might be that, or it might be multiflora rose or autumn olive, a very common invasive shrub. McDonough County is blank on, but I definitely know it's here.
Yeah, a lot of those range maps, you can tell where the universities are, because those are the counties that have this stuff, whether it's invasives or native plants like this. You can tell where the people doing the research are and reporting stuff. Because I think, you look at that map, at least the map I looked at, I think Champaign County is highlighted. I guess St. Louis, not necessarily in Illinois, and then maybe Quad Cities. Those are like the only ones in Illinois that have it reported. So.
Yes, you could make so many conclusions from those maps, from that type of data. You could say that universities seem to attract invasive plants, or they seem to attract biological diversity. That this truly is. There's just more people there looking for stuff. So that's why usually a lot of these distribution maps have more data around kind of higher ed learning institutes.
I guess we should talk about what it looks like.
Okay, yes, that would be a good one. What is this plant, and what does it look like?
So when it gets, was it 2-4 feet tall? Mm-hmm. Again, it's got these clustered flowers when it starts to bloom. So bloom time, from what I've seen, it's July to September timeframe. Again, your mileage may vary on that depending on where you're at, but kind of a later summer into fall blooming period. It is a perennial. It is a mint, so it's in the mint family. Because of this, so it's not true mint like our spearmint and all of that stuff, but it is in the mint family. And like a lot of mints, it can be aggressive. Maybe not as aggressive as some of those true mints, but it will spread readily. So this is something, if you're planting, a lot of the recommendations are in the spring, just go around and with the spade and cut off. They'll spread by rhizomes, so cut those off if you want to kind of contain it or reduce that spread a little bit. 2 to 4, 1 to 3 feet tall, spread is about the same. So get decent size, but it shouldn't necessarily swallow your landscape like some plants. And then when it does bloom, it has these silvery bracts underneath the flower. So I've seen descriptions of it. Looks kind of like it's been like light snow cover on there. To me, it looks like powdery mildew. But that's just where
it really does.
That's just where my brain goes. So, so the bracts can be, has a silvery appearance, ornamental appearance, and then it has these white to pinkish white flowers that it'll produce on those.
These tubular shaped kind of flowers that kind of come out on this head. And you had mentioned, Ken, before that, before we started recording, that mint family, not true mint, but also related to maybe more closely to bergamot or bee balm. That's what the flowers kind of remind me of a little bit. Those bergamot bee balm flower heads, like tight clusters of flowers that'll open up.
And kind of a miniature version, of that.
So you mentioned spreads, just like a typical mint does, by rhizomes. And so when planting this one, a few locations you might want to consider. I would say, regardless of like where at, most certainly want to make sure that it does have room to spread and move, and also interplant with other competitive plants. Something like purple coneflower would be a good option to like interplant with this one. Purple coneflower is another one that will spread and move around. Maybe some of our grasses, some of our bunch growing grasses, which can kind of contain it and kind of halt its spread going in one direction. Heck, you might even throw goldenrod in there. Not Canada goldenrod. I like Canadian goldenrod, but there's a lot of other species out there that maybe aren't as aggressive, but might be able to hold their own against the mountain mint.
Yeah, or some of the asters, maybe.
Yeah, good. Well, that would be another good one. Mm-hmm.
I just forgot to mention, so the growth habit is kind of upright. And it's full sun. It can take part shade. It likes kind of consistently moist but not wet soils. And I was reading in Alan Armitage's herbaceous perennial plants. He was growing one, not the same species, but how do you say? It was growing in full sun. Unfortunately, the garden became shadier. The plants became leggier and toppled by midsummer, creating a green hairball of absolutely no value. So if you get too much shade, sounds like they will start to flop, and they won't have that nice upright, a little more compact growth on them.
The Perennial Plant Association, because they've selected this plant, they do have kind of like a dedicated website with like all of the characteristics, maybe other pairings that you could plant this particular one with. And we can definitely make sure that people are linked to that down below in the show notes. I would say that in line with Ken, the one thing that they do mention on their website, like, oh, this would be a really good edging plant. But again, if you get too much shade, that edging plant is going to flop over into your walkway. So make sure there's good sun. But I think it would look great as a mass planting, maybe even containing like some other pollinator garden plantings. And so, so you can cluster this as like a large grouping of planting with a couple smaller other pollinator plants or grasses poking through like this a massed clustered mountain mint.
Yeah, I think he mentions Armitage in his book, Chicago Botanic Garden, at least when he wrote this, has got a big planting of it. But he says grasses along with goldenrod and coneflowers are alone worth the price of admission. So don't know if that still exists, but may have to find out this summer.
There you go. Yeah. If only I had meadows and prairies of space to put plants in, I could create some stunning works of art like the Lurie Garden up in Chicago also. with their Salvia River. Well, Ken, again, I am stuck a little bit on this expansion of this plant, which makes me a little bit nervous. I do have a pollinator garden though that has things like ironweed. We have different silphiums from Compass Plant. We have prairie dock. I also have Joe Pyeweed in there. We got let's see. I planted coneflower. We got black-eyed Susan. I feel like this plant would work well in there. I feel like that would be a good community of plants for it to be in. And I'm also tempted maybe to put it more on its own and more of a conventional landscape planting, where it's all surrounded by mulch, all the little meatballs in the mulch planting, in an effort to kind of cover up more space. So, I think that would be a strategy for me. One, I could interplant it a bit more densely in a pollinator garden, but maybe also put it out a little bit farther away from the house and allow it to fill in a larger space.
More of a ground cover, like
a
tall ground cover.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. And I am a little bit hesitant sometimes just to knowing that, when people plant aggressive plants, they wind up sometimes having a bad experience. So I think it's just something to be mindful of. I just want to make sure people are aware that it is going to spread. So you can use a shovel to kind of chop up the edges, dig it up, divide it. Not only will that make it smaller, control the growth, it can rejuvenate it and allow the plant to maybe flush out with a bit more healthier growth pattern the next following year. But again, if you're not that kind of gardener, if you don't want to do that, then just plant it in a spot where you got lots of room for it to grow.
So with the Perennial Plant Association, the reason I pick these is because it can grow over a wide range. It's relatively problem-free. What are some of the other things they talk about?
It is deer and rabbit resistant. So yes. if you have an issue with four-legged stomachs, the aromatics in the plant make it less desirable to any browsing animal out there in the wild. So you will not see as much herbivory or any browsing.
Yes. Good segue. Speaking of scents, so all of these mountain mints have different smells to them. So with this one, clustered mountain mint, it's kind of a minty smell. But I did find a paper. It was actually published last October where they looked at the different odorants that are responsible for the aroma. And we can put the title of the publication in the notes, but it's Characterization of Odorants in Clustered Mountain Mint, Pycnanthemum muticum. So they were using, I don't know what most of the stuff is, solvent-assisted flavor evaporation, or SAFE, gas chromatography olfactometry, GCO, and gas chromatography mass spectrometry to do this. And what do they find? I think it was like 40 different chemicals or something like that. But several noteworthy odorants with an OAV, or odor activity, values of greater or equal to 1. And I'm assuming that the higher it is, the more of a smell you get from it. They had stuff that was minty, mushroom, coconut, eucalyptus, mint and coconut, mint, pine, and mint. So there you go. If you want to go down a rabbit hole and learn about the different chemicals that are in this, somebody's looked at it, and you can do that. So put a minty smell to these.
In the end, it smells like mint. Yes, but yeah, someone put a lot of work into a plant that not many people know about. They're trying to get a perfume label out of this or something, or trying to make some kind of good smelling air freshener, or add this to the next house cleaning detergent. I don't know.
So let's hear it say, these findings lay the foundation for future investigations into the diversity of P. muticum selections and can provide valuable insights for studies on plant hybridization for food and flavor applications.
I know with the mountain mints that I'm more familiar with, the ones that are a bit more common here in Illinois, I will go and I'll grab them and I'll rub them in my hands and I'll sniff them. They also have kind of a minty smell to them as well. The ones in our neck of the woods that I'm more familiar with. So if folks have seen these, they might know them a bit more better. Probably the most common one out there has a very creative name. It's called common mountain mint. I think also American mountain mint is a synonym of it. And so that is, you'll find that throughout Illinois. The one that I deal with most often, I have a little spot where I take a botany class to in the fall, is a slender mountain mint. That's Pycnanthemum tenuifolium. And that is a very interesting species as well. And that in this one spot that we've gone to a couple of years in a row, I've seen the mountain mint expand. And it's really crowded out some of the native grasses. But as it has expanded, its density has lessened, and now more forbs are coming in kind of behind, like filling in this area, but there's fewer grasses. So I think it's a pretty neat plant to see in the wild. Tenuifolium, which is the one I'm familiar with, and I'm sure muticum has, similar characteristics to it. But in line of that, not only like the plant diversity that seems to occur in this space is really, it's different than a lot of things, because this is happening naturally. There is burning that occurs there, but it's nothing is influencing it other than a human lighting it on fire every few years. But at other spots where there's not mountain mint, this is not happening. So there's a lot of plant diversity happening, but mountain mint in general, muticum being one of them, these are magnets for insects. Like insects love these plants as pollinators, and beneficial insects. So, what can you tell us more about the insect attractiveness of this plant?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different insects that I'm going to go to. And so I came across a couple papers. I looked specifically at muticum, or included that in there. One of them, so this was assessing pollinator richness in urban grown mountain mint population. So this one was in Virginia, looking at sites in more urban areas. So where was this done? In the Richmond area. And they were looking at clustered mountain mint and slender mountain mint. And they were looking at the species richness. So how many different species are you seeing? Not necessarily pure numbers. We saw 10,000 on this, 10,000 individuals, but just the kind of the diversity, how many different species are visiting these plants. So in this particular study, for clustered mountain mint, they found 85 different taxa, so 85 species or genera, and then 43 on the slender mountain mint. And with that, let me find that table. So 17. So on the slender, 25% of those were bees, 17% for the clustered. For wasps, made up 25% of the slender and 29% of the clustered, and they grouped all the others together. Butterflies, beetles, flies, all that, they made up 50 and 54%. So about half of the insects visiting are bees and wasps, and then everything else. So a lot of different things coming there. Different times of the year, you've got different things coming in, because these can be long bloomed or have a long bloom season. I think for this one, for the slender, they only looked at it for 3 weeks because the bloom started to decline. But the cluster, they looked at it for 7 weeks, and you can see in the paper they've got tables where they're kind of looking at it by species. You've got some of them moving in early and then falling off or coming in later. Some of them there the whole time. But a lot of different things are utilizing these as a food source. And then there was another one I came across, variation of insect richness in 6 prairie plant species, and this was in Louisiana. But they were looking at a patch that had, what was it? Brazilian vervain, which is an invasive species in some parts of the country, rattlesnake master, rosinweed, Texas coneflower, wild bergamot, and clustered or blunt mountain mint. And about all of those, They had 75 different taxa visiting the one mountain mint, so it was more than any other type. So others were close, but the mountain mint had more different species going to it than all the others. Not necessarily the most; they didn't look at that, but just the diversity. So they're good for drawing in a lot of different things. So if you're interested in a good plant for pollinators, this would fit that bill.
And I think also with that bloom time being most of the summer, at least for the clustered mountain mint, we're looking at most of the summer months that will be blooming, a lot of times up until frost, but deadheading it can encourage a new growth of blooms. So folks can do that. I know sometimes people are like, oh, I want to leave the seed heads on for, winter interest or habitat. If you do it early enough, or maybe midsummer, you will get a new flush of flower buds that will open up by the time we get into late summer, early fall timeframe. And that would allow you to maybe have some good seasonality to this. So, as we transition from summer into fall and then into winter, as we think about right now, the dark side of the gardening season, their mountain mint, and again, I'm thinking more about some of what I've seen with that the clustered mountain mint online. That seasonality appeal to it, hopefully it would have a really interesting seed head for the winter months, and then and be a refuge place for insects. Birds could use some of that material and debris. So I think it would be a good seasonal plant, multi-season interest.
And with the birds, if you're drawing in lots of pollinators, a lot of birds eat insects. So you got the whole circle there if you've got it.
Perennial Plant Association, again, announced clustered mountain mint as our 2025 plant of the year. It might not be, this will be one that you could probably find, let me say, at like a native plant nursery, which are becoming more and more common to see here in Illinois. But it might not be as common in a large-scale retail nursery. So it might be a bit more difficult to find. So that's something to be mindful of. But there are other mountain mints out there that are also part of the landscape trade. We mentioned Pycnanthemum tenuifolium, that slender mountain mint, that you can sometimes find that in native plant nurseries. Common mountain mint, Virginiatum, that's another one that would probably be able to find at a native plant nursery. And then there's Pycnanthemum and Canum, which is kind of hoary mountain mint, or let's see, was that? Oh, that's Pelosum. There's a couple of them. they run together in your head.
I think hoary's your fuzzy one if you want to feel one.
Yes, that's the fuzzy one that I wanna grab and take a nap under. So yes, hoary mountain mint, it would be another one with that different leaf color to it that could add additional landscape interest.
Yeah, I think depending on where you read or what you read, there's 21 species of them. And these four are kind of at least on the internet, when you look around, those are kind of the four that you most commonly see available. I think they have different fragrances too. I saw somewhere that slender was mint with a hint of grass. Mm-hmm. And then the common was a lemony or citronella mint scent. So just like your regular mints, you get all kinds of different smells too.
Yeah. Yeah. And that would make sense too. Yeah. I remember, you grab that slender mountain mint and be like, you can pick up mint to it, but it also just smells like dried leaves, so it, it's not as strong as like, grabbing a handful of spearmint and just like, whoa. Yeah. Well, that was a lot of great information about the 2025 Perennial Plant of the Year, clustered mountain mint, Pycnanthemum muticum. So I'll get to know that one this year. That's why I like some of these like the Perennial Plant Association, their plant of the year, all American selections. Like, I like being able to look at these and knowing that they've been trialed, and it's not just me on a whim at a garden center. Like, that's pretty, I like that. And without any thought or research, I grabbed that plant off the shelf. It could be good, could be bad, but hey, someone out there has done the research here on that clustered mountain mint, and this is going to be a plant that might not work for every landscape, but I'm going to try it in mine. And yeah, I'll report back and we'll see how it goes. Maybe back in 2026. Oh my gosh, we're going to look that far ahead already.
Yeah. I think these things, I've heard of mountain mint, but it's never really, when I've been looking at plants, it's never really anything that I've thought about, but maybe not, probably will now just because of learning about it and reading more into it, where I probably wouldn't have done that if it wasn't plant of the year.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's always been like a wild plant. It's like more wild than maybe I would have been comfortable put it in my yard, but I got some crazy stuff in there already, so I don't know why I would even think that. I'm looking at you, zigzag goldenrod. You're spreading all over the place, but I do love it. It is beautiful in the fall.
You can plant it with some northern sea oats.
Oh yeah,
how dig it out?
Yeah, I'm sure that would be great. Yeah, nope, that's all right. I'll try the clustered mountain mint this year. Well, the Good Growing Podcast is a production of University of Illinois Extension, edited this week by me, Chris Enroth. Hey, Ken, thank you so much hanging out today, learning about the 2025 Perennial Plant of the Year and looking for a spot in the yard for it.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I think I have an idea where we could fit it in to our landscape. Mm-hmm. Let's do this again next week.
Oh, we shall do this again next week. Maybe not both of us, but at least one of us will be back here because we have a good old conference next week, the Everything Local Conference, where we get together in Springfield and we talk about our local foods, local food systems. Heck, we even get into floriculture, flower farming. It is everything local, folks. So it's quite the conference. So it's a lot of farmers and growers there getting to learn and getting their winter education on. So looking forward to seeing you there, Ken.
Yes. Yeah, get ready for some cider.
Oh yeah, cider contest. Oh, that's so much fun. I'll take it easy on the coffee that morning. Well, listeners, thank you for doing what you do best, and that is listening. Or if you're watching us on YouTube, watching. And as always, keep on growing.